Hero or dictator? To millions, Fidel Castro was a savior. To others, the man who turned an island into a prison. But the truth is far darker.
Than myself, that is my brother and my sister-in-law. I can't tell that they are not communists.
In 1959, a man in olive green fatigues entered Havana and changed Cuba forever. Some called him a liberator, others called him a tyrant. Decades later, his name still splits families, governments, and history itself. Fidel Alejandro Castro Ruz was born on August 13, 1926, in Biran, eastern Cuba. He was not born into total poverty, but he grew up inside a country scarred by brutal inequality, elite privilege, and deep social resentment. From an early age, he saw two Cubas, one for the powerful and one for the forgotten. His father was a Spanish landowner. His mother came from a humbler background and worked on the family estate. Fidel grew up surrounded by tension, ambition, and hierarchy. At school, he stood out for his memory, intelligence, and explosive temperament. He was not quiet, he was intense, competitive, defiant. Very early, he showed the two traits that would define his life: fierce self-belief and an almost obsessive need to lead. When he moved to Havana to study law, he plunged into politics, and Cuban politics at the time was toxic. Corruption, violence, foreign influence, and growing anger in the streets. Then came the moment that changed everything. In 1952, Fulgencio Batista seized power in a coup. For many Cubans, it proved the system was broken. For Fidel, it was a declaration of war. In 1953, he led the attack on the Moncada barracks. Militarily, it was a disaster. Many died. Fidel was captured. It looked like the end of his political dream. In reality, it was the beginning of his legend. At trial, he delivered the line that would echo through history: "History will absolve me." He did not sound defeated. He sounded destined. That combination of charisma, defiance, and certainty began turning him from failed rebel into national symbol. After prison, he went into exile in Mexico. There, he rebuilt his movement. There, he met Ernesto Che Guevara. There, he planned his return. In 1956, aboard the yacht Granma, he sailed back to Cuba with a small rebel force. They were outnumbered, underarmed, and hunted, but they had something stronger than weapons, a story powerful enough to ignite a nation. From the Sierra Maestra, Fidel carefully built his myth: the beard, the fatigues, the speeches, the promise of justice. Bit by bit, he won support from peasants, students, and Cubans exhausted by Batista's rule. Batista grew weaker. Fidel grew larger than life. On January 1, 1959, Batista fled. Fidel Castro emerged as the face of victory. Cuba exploded with hope, euphoria, and fear. For many, it was the birth of a new era. For others, it was the beginning of something dangerous. At first, the world watched with fascination. Here was a young revolutionary confronting corruption and foreign domination. But fascination soon turned to alarm, because the revolution did not simply replace a government, it reshaped the entire country. Castro nationalized businesses, seized property, broke with U.S. interests, and aligned Cuba with the Soviet Union. In the middle of the Cold War, that wasn't just politics, it was a global shockwave. Then came the turning point. In 1961, the Bay of Pigs invasion failed. Fidel emerged stronger than ever, presenting himself as the man who had humiliated a superpower. His image grew, so did his control, and that is where the revolution hardened. What supporters called revolutionary discipline, critics called repression. Independent media disappeared, dissidents were jailed, executions took place, surveillance deepened, thousands fled the island, families were torn apart by exile, silence, and fear. This is the real controversy around Fidel Castro, not a one-week scandal, not a tabloid headline, but a question that still refuses to die. Did he save Cuba from foreign domination or trap it inside another form of control? His defenders point to undeniable achievements: literacy campaigns, universal education, national sovereignty. His critics answer with another list: censorship, political prisoners, lack of free elections, crushed opposition, economic stagnation, and lives defined by restriction. And while Cuba became a symbol, Fidel mastered the stage. He gave marathon speeches, challenged presidents, survived crises, defied Washington. He built an image of resistance that made him an icon to some and a villain to others. In 1962, the world came terrifyingly close to nuclear disaster during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Cuba became the center of global fear. Even though the superpower stepped back, the island would never again be seen as just a small Caribbean nation. Decade after decade, Fidel endured. He survived sanctions, isolation, economic collapse, diplomatic pressure, and endless rumors of plots against him. Every time the world expected him to fade, he projected control again. He was not merely the president, he became the revolution itself. But no system remains untouched forever. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, Cuba entered the devastating special period: shortages, blackouts, hunger, desperation. For ordinary Cubans, revolutionary pride no longer filled empty tables. Even then, Fidel didn't fully disappear. He returned through speeches, essays, and carefully staged appearances. To supporters, he remained a symbol of dignity against the United States. To critics, he was the exhausted face of a system that refused to let go. In 2006, due to serious health problems, he temporarily transferred power to his brother Raúl Castro. It was a historic signal. The man who had seemed permanent was stepping back. In 2008, that transition became official, but his shadow never left Cuba. On November 25, 2016, Fidel Castro died at the age of 90. The global reaction revealed the full scale of his divided legacy. In some places, there were tears, tributes, and revolutionary chants. In others, especially among Cuban exiles, there were celebrations. Few 20th century figures inspired such opposite emotions at the same moment. Today, Fidel Castro remains one of the most controversial leaders in modern history. To some, he's a symbol of anti-imperialist resistance. To others, an authoritarian ruler who sacrificed freedom in the name of revolution. And maybe that tension is exactly why his story still grips the world. Because Fidel was never just a man. He was an idea, a myth, a warning, proof that one leader can embody hope and fear at the same time. So here's the final question. If you had lived in Fidel Castro's Cuba, would you have seen him as a savior or a dictator?